Hello and welcome to all the ghouls and vampires out there. I'm Joe, here with me is my co-host Dan.
Hello and greetings.
And welcome to another horror cinema podcast. And this is a movie which needs no introduction, although it should have gotten one into theaters. I'm just saying, because it was chucked out because the studio was stupid. So it was produced and made in 2009, but they didn't want to release it. So 2012 is also the release date. What a confusing movie. But Solomon Kane is derived from the stories written by Robert E. Howard about a Puritan who happens to be a demon hunter and a hunter of monsters. He's the OG Witcher for those who are less familiar with nerddom. Now, to be quite honest, I've not yet read the stories by Robert E. Howard about Solomon Kane. My copy of Savage Tales of Solomon Kane is in the mail. So yay on that one. I'm just bragging there. On the other hand, this movie stars James Purefoy, who was at the height of his career, having just played Marcus Antonius, and by the time of 2012 thereabouts was playing Joe Carroll in the excellent series, well, 2-season series, the third season doesn't count, The Following. And he is just masterful here. We get the backstory of Solomon Kane, how he went from boy to man. He was a nobleman's second son who thought he killed his older brother by accident. You know, that's a nod to Cain and Abel. Well, the surname's derived from the biblical story. But the idea of Solomon is that he was a ruthless murderer whom the devil tries to claim, because the devil's kind of bored that weekend and doesn't have anything better to do. God's not answering his phone calls anymore. I'm joking. I hope any Christians who watch us will not mind the joke. But in all seriousness, Solomon is a devout Christian who wants to atone and return to God's good grace. But the problem is he's been a naughty boy. And his solution at first is to become a man of peace. Seeking out a monastery, he tries to become a monk. But the monastery and the monks there reject him. This after he's given them all of his gold, all of his hard-earned wealth. So he goes back out there, runs into a puritanical family, and starts to bond with them. And honestly, it's rather touching how he bonds with them. They do seem like an actual family. And the actor, I forget his name, who plays the patriarch of the family is, you might know him from Jurassic Park 2 as the one hunter, and also from Dragonheart as Brother Gilbert. Perfect actor. I think this was one of his last roles. Rest his soul. God rest his soul. Solomon Kane in this film seeks a path of peace, bonds with Samuel, the young son, and begins to have... There seems to be the blossoms to a... whatever, sorry, I'm not thinking straight. There's a blossoming romance between him and Meredith, the daughter. The trouble is that throughout the countryside of England, there are bandits possessed by demons who are running around. And so they kind of put a wrench into this potentially good life. And thus, he's put back on the path of killing and being a badass. With Solomon Kane ultimately trying to reason at first with the demon, Samuel dies, as does the eldest son, I forget his name, and William is mortally injured. In response, Solomon opens back up the can of whoop-ass, destroys the monsters, for the most part, and goes on a quest to save Meredith. Along the way, he slaughters a lot of demons, comes to believe that Meredith has passed on after dispensing with some bandits that initially mugged him and knocked him out. And of course, he feeds one of them to a bunch of zombies, which is kind of funny and kind of dark. But the guy's already possessed by a demon, so, and has sold his soul, so. Okay.
What difference does it make?
Yeah. The priest of that local parish was horrible.
Yeah.
He was no priest. And Solomon goes to find himself in true Howardian fashion, the nearest pub to drown his sorrows in. The trouble is, he runs into someone who once served under him when he was captain of a ship, only to then get crucified by Malachi and his lackey Marcus, who happens to be the possessed older brother of Solomon. It's revealed later. Solomon, oh, by the way, spoilers. Solomon, by the way, tears himself free from the crucifixion, is taken in, healed, and goes back out there, leading a band of peasants and warriors who have banded together behind him to his family castle, where he fights his way and sneaks his way through to the dungeons to free everyone, only to find his father, whom is dying, and confesses to having called in the sorcerer because he was so desperate to save Marcus and believed he had failed Solomon, so he wanted to cling to at least one son, which, yes, he had favored Marcus in their childhood far more than Solomon, but the fact is he threw a tantrum when Solomon did not want him to go to the priesthood. But on the other hand, the situation is very complicated. And the father, the actor who plays him, does a great job, so that you get a sense that the father did deep down love his son. It's just he had his vices. And in the end, he learned how to better show it, but by then, there's no way he can survive. So, yeah, Solomon has to pull a gun on him. Solomon then, in a fit of rage, marches his way to the, I don't know what to call it, the throne room? The audience hall? Anyways, marches his way there and decides he's going to, let's just say, put Malachi in timeout. To put it politely. Okay, to put it in politely, he wants to send him off to hell, which he'll do. But first off, he ends up telling Malachi, get off my father's chair, in not so polite tones, and proceeds to fight against Marcus, destroying Marcus, or the facsimile that is Marcus, because it's not really Marcus anymore, and proceeds to free Meredith, whose blood is used to liberate a demon. Solomon then proceeds to shoot and kill the sorcerer, destroying the demon in the process, The sorcerer and his blood falls onto the dark mirror that had released the demon, and the demon's called back to hell. And because Solomon has learned to value others over himself and was willing to sacrifice even his soul to save Meredith, his soul, it turns out, has been redeemed, and God has decided to show him favor and saves him from the demon, or so it seems. That's one way of reading it. The other, and, Solomon proceeds to then vow to go off on a pilgrimage to protect the innocent and destroy demons and monsters wherever he may find them, swearing the ultimate oath of badassery. As sworn before by Conan, Dark Ang, and Kull, and even Brill. Honestly, after watching this movie, now, almost 10 years ago, this was my first encounter of Solomon Kane, and it remains so. I'm going to be honest, on watching this film, I would love to see, instead of I now understand Grimdark a lot more. It's like, because he had said, unironically, I would have preferred a Solomon Kane trilogy of games over a Witcher trilogy of games, and I'm actually inclined to agree.
Same here.
Because after watching this, it's just, and I'm pretty sure this is probably a watered down Solomon Kane compared to the original Prost by Howard. This character with his own game trilogy would have been awesome. Especially monster and devil hunting and whatnot.
I'd so play such a game.
Yeah, well, at my current age, I don't know about myself. I think I'd want to at least try it, but I know for a fact you would. You and our eldest brother would definitely play it into the ground. Only reason I expressed doubt about myself is my gamer side has kind of died off in some ways. Well, look, I was playing Latro for a while. I really enjoyed the game, but then I just decided I didn't, like, you know what I mean? I wasn't, like, it's only recently that I've started to try to push myself to play it again for the gaming channel. And so, yeah, I don't know if I'd play it now, but I'd like it if I would. But I can see that, okay, don't take it the wrong way. People, don't hit the unsub button just yet. I have been told Elric and Geralt and other characters like that, including Dante and whatnot, are watered down versions of Solomon Kane. And yeah, I totally get it. This guy is so much more metal than them.
There was a long time where I didn't care about the name Solomon Kane. All I heard was the word antihero, and it's like, okay, no, not for me.
But this character's deep.
Yes, there's a lot more going on with this movie, with this character.
In this movie, it's conveyed that he's a reluctant anti-hero. He'd rather be a Boy Scout. There was a time he was kind of a Dark Knight type archetype, but he's become, of course, a warrior archetype of sorts. But he's someone who longs to be more a priest. And it's odd, but I think that the character himself would prefer to go wander off into a monastery and just forsake violence. He does not, like, what's interesting is he enjoys battle, as he confesses in this film. He loves it, but there's a nervousness towards his own love for battle, and there's a sincere piety and love for people that's shown in this film. He genuinely deep down loves people. What he hates is, well, demons and monsters and bandits and tyrants and whatnot. Basically, he hates evil in all its forms. So that you have a very conflicted character.
I like that here it is, the topic of faith in such an ugly world where every kind of vice he is confronted with, and he has to get through it and find his faith, whereas you have everyone else, sorcerers and pagans, they're the ones with the deities and the creatures that can help directly. But in the end,
yeah, like, they're the ones people turn to for healing, or, like, Solomon Kane has one scene where he expresses doubt about God, which is in the church. But what's interesting is that the pagan gods may save a man's flesh, the demons and monsters may take it, but they'll poison it. But there's only, at least in the context of this movie, there's only one God who may rescue a man's soul and restore him to himself, to being what he should be, God. And it's a very weird horror and action film. It's a very, I'm going to say this, it's very steeped in Christianity, this film. If the idea is that Solomon exists in a fallen world, as fallen as our own currently is, and always has been. And Solomon Kane is trying to find his way. It's interesting because where someone like, say, Conan, for the most part, his path is clear to him. Where Kull is insecure and brooding, Kane is very much brooding, but he's not insecure. In a way. He doubts and he frets, but he's not insecure. What he's mostly brooding about is his soul, and there's a sincere Christian desire to be saved. and to find redemption, and to kind of heal and help others. And it makes for a very, very complex character. So yeah, there was a time you didn't like antiheroes, but this, I will ask, do you think the you of like 10 years ago would have liked this film?
Actually, I think he would. It's just I grew up in the 90s, so the anti-hero thing is like, it was all around you, and eventually it's like, oh boy.
More of the same.
More of the same. And
yeah. Solomon Kane, the movie, let's rate this.
boy.
Tough, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm going to say a 3.5.
3.3.
Yeah.
I mean, I like Season of the Witch,
Yeah.
and I got the same vibe.
Yeah. I have to admit, I really love the soundtrack. The soundtrack was great. Okay, actually, I'm going to say 3.3 because the soundtrack bumps it up. The soundtrack, Purefoy's acting. This is a darn near perfect horror film. And it speaks to a deeper need in human nature. It's not just a horror movie. It's a horror movie with character and with genuine interest in men's souls. And it is one that really shows the longing in human nature. And yeah, it's just, actually, you know what, I'll switch back to 3.5. I would have liked it had the movie ended with just the first line that he says in the short stories: "Men shall die for this." Just so that we end where Howard begins. That would have been the perfect ending for this film. But it is a good film. It's a great film, actually. So I'm probably going to say this is a must-see. This is one of Purefoy's best flicks. And he's had a really great career. And he plays Solomon Kane to perfection. If only we got a Solomon Kane video game.
Yes.
That would have been perfect. Anyways, don't forget to smash that like and that subscribe button as though you were Solomon Kane himself tearing apart his enemies.